It ain't the left side or the right side, then it must be the fin side. Inside. It ain't the left side.
Thank you, Solo D. Welcome to another episode of On the Fin Side here with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. And tonight we have a special guest with us, Ken Meringolo. He is the CEO of First Amendment Sports, and he also writes for Hog Haven for the Washington Redskins as well. So, Ken, thank you very much for joining us here tonight. As you know, we've got the Battle of the Titans this weekend, the 0-5 Redskins against the 0-5 Miami Dolphins.
Something's got to give, Kat. Something's got to give. I believe one of us will be giving the other that first win. And who's to say? I mean, there's a lot of history involved. I'll of course be tuning in to find out, but at the same time, I think it might just be you and me watching this game.
It might be. I mean, I think ticket sales are about as low as they would be for the Miami Zoo right now for this whole game. So, yeah, you know, we're both in the same spot, let's be honest. I mean, you know, with the Redskins, obviously a lot has gone on. I mean, we feel like actually the normal team this week when we look at Washington. They fired Jay Gruden. Bill Callahan was promoted. You know, there's a lot of talk this week, and just stories tend to come out about Daniel Snyder, how he prefers to be called Mr. Snyder in certain situations. You've got the quarterback controversy where, you know, they start out with Case Keenum, they go to Dwayne Haskins, then to Colt McCoy, then back to Case Keenum. So what is the overall feeling with the Redskins right now based on things you've heard and you've experienced?
Yeah, I mean, I've been, covering this team pretty closely for 10 years now. I've had a chance to interview Snyder. I've had a chance to be up close and personal, with members of the franchise. And they really succeeded in making us feel like we had gotten away from this dysfunction and chaos. That is totally, unnecessary and inescapable in professional sports. And Dan Snyder fails on a regular basis to escape it. And I think what we are this week, where we've really been now for a few weeks, is back mired in this dysfunction. And the Washington Redskins, we were talking about on my show this week, we just can't, even when we try to do something like a normal team would do, you're bad, you fire the head coach. That happens. That happens in every professional sport. But the way the Redskins do it is, it's like a bad sitcom. Like, we can't just get rid of a guy because it's the right thing to do at the right time for both the coach and the team. And that would have been about a month ago, or even before the season started, because there was no mystery about whether or not Jay was going to survive this. Even Jay thought he was going to be fired before, but we always have to take it to the point where something stupid has to happen to cause the right thing to go down. And it goes over and over again. Jim Zorn calling the swinging gate 2 times in a row against the New York Giants, which was a big middle finger to Dan Snyder. That was ultimately what was able to get him fired. Dan Snyder's inability to quit Vinny Serrato was the reason why Marty Schottenheimer was ultimately fired. Spurrier quitting from the golf course. Joe Gibbs throwing his hands in the air. This Jay Gruden thing. Jay Gruden was fired already, but he was just still in the job. It's like this dead man walking thing. It happens over and over. And for the Washington Redskins fan base, we're desperate for some normalcy. We're desperate. That's what we are.
One player that has been normal for the Redskins really over the last 4 years, and somebody that a lot of Dolphins fans are already talking about because we've got an eye on 2020, is right guard Brandon Scherff. And Brandon Scherff is going to be a free agent after the year, as you know. And word is that he turned down a $13 million contract from the Redskins. What is your feeling about whether or not the Redskins are going to be able at the end of the day to get him back? And do you think that what type of impact could he make if he leaves? What kind of impact could he make on a team like the Dolphins?
Well, first of all, he's an all-pro style player. He was immediately a top-level guard. We drafted him in the top 10. Everyone was all banged up about that. You can't do this, you can't do that. Well, he came right in right away and was excellent. one of the best players on our team. And so wherever he goes, he's going to play well. And there's another classic case of where the Redskins have been. What we thought we were getting away from is the ability to keep talent in-house. The word on the street is they offered him a pretty good deal, and he didn't sign it right away. And I think, the Redskins, the only chance they have to keep guys like Brandon Scherff, at this point, is to overpay them. And the problem for the Redskins is they have $161 million next year committed, much of it to guys who aren't going to play for us. I don't see Brandon Scherff coming back to Washington. If the Miami Dolphins are lucky enough to get him, he's plug and play at an all-pro level. So, any team would be lucky to have him on their offensive line. He's an excellent player. He fights hard, and, he just makes you better. And it's a shame that if the Washington Redskins, can't keep a guy like that they invested so heavily in. And you know what? The thing that, I'll say, if the Miami Dolphins are lucky enough to get him, I don't think he's the kind of player who'll stay to be overpaid. I think he wants to go somewhere that where the business is operated, in a freaking normal way. And we're like up is up and down is down, And I think guys like him are trying to escape, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, and it depends on what the Dolphins have to offer a player like that other than money heading into next year. But let's turn it a little more positive here for the Redskins. I mean, at quarterback, Case Keenum is going to start this game. Had 7 touchdowns in his first 3.5 games before Dwayne Haskins came in, and just an ugly game against the Giants. They were looking okay, really up into halftime of the Patriots game there, and then it was a terrible second half. The Patriots just kept leaning on them more, beat them 33-7. But really, when I look at this roster, Terry McLaurin, the wide receiver, 3rd-round pick out of Ohio State, you may be looking at this point in the year, a possible Rookie of the Year candidate for the Redskins.
We were on him the second we drafted him. It was the story on him when the Redskins drafted McLaurin was that, he was kind of we had already got Haskins from Ohio State, and they went after McLaurin because, maybe you can get yourself a guy who has some chemistry with your potential franchise quarterback. He was a guy who was brought in to play special teams. And he was a leader, and I think going into the combine, if you go a little bit further back, Terry McLaurin showed up at the combine really as not a top line guy. Scouts liked him because they knew the story of him, a high character leader of a team with a lot of toughness and strength. And then he ran a 4.38 40, and he blew people away with his physical measurables. He shouldn't have been drafted in the 3rd round. Someone should have got him at least in the 2nd. He's a stud.
He is. And
preseason, they hit him.
Yeah, and I was surprised to see him fall to the 3rd round there too. And yeah, he's a player that looks like he's going to be for a Redskins team that spent so much money on receivers over the years. I don't have to remind you, the Santana Mosses, the Lavernius Coles, Pierre Garçons, these type of guys, to really get one in the 3rd round and have him, hit the 1,000-yard mark, which is well within reach, would be major for them. Their offensive line, we talked a little bit about Brandon Scherff, and obviously that's been another story this year. Trent Williams did not report, is still not playing at this point because of a discrepancy, to my understanding, with the Redskins medical staff, and he felt like he was being lied to. You can correct me on that. And then Donald Penn they signed, and it looks like he's pretty iffy for this game at that left tackle spot. So without Williams, without Donald Penn, are we going to see Eric Flowers kick over to left tackle, or are we going to see Jerron Christian get the start here?
I'm sure they would like to see what Jerron Christian can do at tackle. That's why he was brought in. When they drafted him, a lot of times you draft a guy like that in that position, you're going to try to kick him in the guard. But Jerron Christian's a tackle prospect. They like him. I'd be shocked if they didn't try to see what he can give them on the left side. As far as Trent Williams is concerned, it's, again, the best player on our entire roster will not play for this team. And Trent Williams he is our best player. He's been our best player for a long time. He showed up injured. He's played hurt. His teammates will do anything for him. The fact that he isn't going to show up for Dan Snyder and Bruce Allen is really all you need to know. With the shape of things, and I gotta believe that that's another guy that a team like Miami or any other team is chomping at the bit to get a chance to add. I don't think he'll never play for the Redskins again, Tremble.
Interesting. And yeah, he's 32 years old. Be interesting where he lands when this all gets figured out. On the defensive side of the ball, Ken, things get a little bit better. I mean, even though the Redskins are allowing somewhere around a little over 30 points a game on the defensive side of the ball, this was a talented group coming into this year, at least on the front seven. When you look at the defense, do you think the points they've let up and the quarterback rating of 110 to opposing quarterbacks they've let up, do you think this has to do with the talent level on defense, or do you think the amount of points that they've really let up has more to do with the offense being so inept for the Redskins the first 5 weeks?
Yeah, so our offense, in the initial weeks, our offense moved the ball, racked up yards. Case Keenum was one of the league leaders. But what we saw was the other team got starting field position. They didn't have to work that hard. Mitch Trubisky for the Bears, for example, came in as he not looking too hot, and we gave him the ball inside the 20, I think twice right away. Made him feel real good about himself. I think that is part to do with it. I think it's so shocking to me how poorly our defense is played, because that is supposed to be our strength and our identity. And we have talent there, and not just talent, we have young talent. And it's shocking to me to see, for example, Josh Norman get beat as badly as he's gotten beat. He's not what he once was, but he's getting beat. No Reuben Foster, hurts. Obviously that's a big linebacker in the middle that could potentially have done some good things for us. But it is kind of it's beyond a head scratcher, because you look at what we have, and you're talking about something that's equal to far less than the sum of these parts.
Yeah, and when I look at the defensive back spot, and I only mention PFF on this show as a rule when something really jumps off the page, they rank Josh Norman and Fabien Moreau very low. Quentin Dunbar, they give extremely high marks this season. Tell us a little bit more about him at that corner spot.
So he's fun, and he's from down your way. He's the University of Florida Gator. He's a wide receiver. Jake Gruden got his hands on him. He's got some size and athleticism. And they said, hey, listen, we need a corner. We need you to try that. And in training camp in the preseason a few years back, he made a successful transition to defensive back. Places like PFF love him because he gets his hands on the ball. First and foremost, he has a kind of a thinks like a wide receiver kind of mentality, which I think helps him. He can absolutely go up and get the ball. But I think what's the most ironic thing of all is a guy who played wide receiver in college, converted to defensive back to help us out, is the guy that teams are thinking twice about throwing to, and they're throwing to our $15 million corner over on the other side of Josh Norman, at will. Dunbar's getting respect in a way that I think people didn't expect to see. And it's fun because you want to have good players on your team, but it's a little bit laughable that he is playing at the level he's playing at, and they're using a guy like Norman on the other side of the field.
Yeah, so you've got Norman out there in the boundary, and you've got Fabien Moreau in there. You've got Quentin Dunbar out there. What's that?
I love Fabien Moreau. He fell to us in the draft. It was a college injury. The Redskins have had success finding guys in the draft who are coming off an injury. Kendall Fuller, Fabien Moreau are two good examples. And they, Moreau he also has size and athletic ability. He has to put it together. He's got to take it to the next step. I mean, he was a first-round caliber selection that fell to us, and he's got to put it back together. But like you said, we got horses, and they're just not running.
So at the defensive back spot, who is the one that lines up in the slot the most?
Fabien Moreau lines up a lot there. Quentin Dunbar does. Jimmy Moorland, the rookie, has taken some snaps there. DeShazer Everett, I believe, has taken some snaps there. I mean, you're going to have Josh Norman is going to be out wide, and Quentin Dunbar is going to be out wide. I think Fabien Moreau ends up taking a lot of slot corner snaps, and that's to me, that's like one of the hardest jobs in pro sports to cover the slot receiver in today's NFL. So, good luck to him. But I think Fabien Moreau needs to be that guy.
Yeah, and one of the more interesting matchups in this game, the Dolphins are expected to get Albert Wilson back. He should be playing a lot of snaps there in the slot. We should expect to see, in that case, Moreau and Albert Wilson lined up a lot. It'll be an interesting matchup with Josh Norman and Quentin Dunbar on the outside against Preston Williams and Devontae Parker. So, again, these AFC, NFC matchups, a lot of times they don't see each other very often. So we'll see who ends up winning those battles. It seems like a pretty even matchup at this point. But another player, Ken, too, I was thinking about, the Redskins were lucky to trade back up into the first round to get him, a player that a lot of fans thought the Dolphins were going to take with the 13th overall pick, and that was Montez Sweat. Obviously a freak athlete at that outside linebacker spot. Ran a 4.4 flat. The Dolphins can't rush the passer, so he or Brian Burns really would have looked good at that spot, even though we like Christian Wilkins a lot. How's Montez Sweat doing here after the first couple of games?
Well, the good news is he's playing. I think anytime a guy falls like that, he's supposed to be a top 10 pick. I know we looked at him, right around that Haskins slot. I wanted Brian Burns myself. You worry, why is he falling? Is he going to be able to play? I think he was a little nicked up, but he's playing. So that's step one. He's getting snaps, getting experience. He has gotten to the quarterback. He has caused some disruption in the backfield. I like his progress. I think, you can't teach those measurables. You can't coach them. So, if you can, you bring him in as a rookie. And this, Cat, some of the, the real benefit in this league is getting production out of guys on rookie contracts. And if you can do that well in the NFL, your team's probably going to be good. And those first and second rounders, if they're playing well for the length of their rookie deal, you have a real chance. And Montez Sweat is a guy who can give us a ton of value out of the bottom of the first round, that first round salary. I'm excited about him, in our defense for years to come. He's a player.
Well said. And, yeah, that's what I liked really up front about the Redskins' 2 first-round picks is if you can nail that quarterback and nail that pass rusher with the first 2 picks, and they're on rookie contracts, man, you've got something you can build around, and now you can spend some money on those other positions. Anybody else on the offensive or defensive side of the ball maybe Dolphins fans don't quite know and should know?
Yeah, our wide receiver core, led by Terry McLaurin, is extremely young, and Trey Quinn, Mr. Irrelevant, he was he threw it at no hitter in the Little League World Series. He was led the nation in receiving in high school and in college. His year at SMU was legendary. He's our slot guy. If he can get something going, Trey Quinn, number 18, he's a guy to watch. And on defense, Darren Payne and Jonathan Allen in the middle, those guys are good. Jonathan Allen is a name that if he was on a different team, he would probably be on, commercials. The Redskins record with and without Jonathan Allen is staggering. It's ridiculous how much worse we are when he's off the field. And in fact, to answer, even better, one of your first questions, Kat, part of the defensive failure of the Washington Redskins, it happened when he went out of the game. He missed a couple games for us at the beginning of the season, and our numbers fell through the floor. And that's been the case for the last couple of seasons. With him, we're actually one of the top defenses against the run, and our numbers look great. And without him, it looks like they just threw helmets and pads on the Washington Generals.
Yeah, and we kind of feel the same way about two players we like, which are Christian Wilkins and Davin Gotcha, where, if you're not on a playoff team and you play this 3-4 style of defense where largely their job is to tie up blocks. I mean, I'm not saying that's all they do, but their job is to command double teams. Then they don't get those 10, 11, 12 sack numbers that these other players in the NFL do. So, yeah, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, both former Alabama Crimson Tide stars. And, yeah, just very good, a solid double pick for the, in baseball terms. They hit a solid double with those picks, someone to really build around there going forward. So I'll open it up to you there, Ken. The Redskins pick second in the draft if it were held today. Dolphins pick third. We're both 0-5. What questions may Redskins fans have for Dolphins fans?
I mean, are you guys hell bent on a quarterback out of next year's draft at this point?
My answer is yes. I think my co-host may disagree with that a little bit, but look, if we're in a situation where the Dolphins accidentally win a couple of games here, I mean, they play the Jets twice. They've got the Redskins, the Giants, the Bengals. They've got some winnable games in the future. If they go 3-13, they may end up picking fourth in the draft. I still think they're only going to win a game or two and end up with the number one pick. But if that were the case, I think they do have the ammunition to move up and offer a very sexy package to the Redskins if they're ending up picking number one. I guess the other question to throw it back at you is, if the Redskins, let's say, for example, have the number one pick in the draft and Dwayne Haskins is on the roster, obviously a lot of balls up in the air. Is it possible they stay at number one and take a player like Tua if he's available at that spot? Well, obviously he will be. He's number one. But is that possible they would pull the plug on Haskins after a year like the Cardinals did with Josh Rosen?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So we're changing head coaches. So, kind of, I would say all bets are off. Dan Snyder likes Dwayne Haskins. So my guess is they're kind of pot committed to the Ohio State quarterback. I want to make sure I'm expressing the proper amount of disrespect for Bruce Allen on this interview because, he's a disaster. He's ultimately in charge of this. He has to go. And, if we're changing over front office and sideline people, then you got to, at least you have the ability to pull off a bluff and make people think you're going to go quarterback because, the Redskins, the other thing about this is we're going to still be paying Alex Smith next year. We owe him another $20 million next year, guaranteed. He's playing again, for the rest of his life. So we have all kinds of problems at the quarterback spot. And, so I think there's nobody on our roster really except for maybe one or two or three guys tops that I wouldn't be willing to get rid of to back pieces and assets. And I think I'm a Trevor Lawrence guy. I'm all in on figuring out a way to get him in 2 years. So that makes me not a Dwayne Haskins guy. Dwayne Haskins, just for the record, he's a gifted athlete. He absolutely can play this professional game. I think he's going to be just fine. But, he could just be yet another guy that gets ruined by the Redskins, because that happens. And I hope that doesn't happen for him. But I hope that if the Redskins are sitting at the top of that draft next year, I hope that people will actually believe and that the Redskins are messed up enough to gamble on Tua or whoever is that top quarterback by the time it's all said and done, so that we can get those picks. Kat, I'm like at the end of my wits on this one because I guess my last real thought is that I'd be interested to know what you think as a Dolphins fan. We're not one player away. We're not two players away, and that's what they're trying to sell us right now. In the press, from the front office, and so my worry is if we're drafting number one overall, they're going to go all in on a guy and try and tell us, well, yep, here we go, we got our guy, Super Bowl.
Right. My opinion is if the Redskins end up picking first and the Dolphins end up picking third or fourth, the Dolphins are going to get that quarterback. If you listen to what Steve Ross said after the 2018 season, it was, we need to get a quarterback and we need to take a step back. And if we need to be bad for a year or two, I'm paraphrasing here, then we're going to do that. So in that situation, given the Redskins cap hell, I think they could move back a couple spots, and I think the Dolphins would gladly give up a first and a second round pick and probably more for that swap. And I think that would set the Redskins up in a good position, because my projection, my guess is that with Daniel Snyder liking Haskins and wanting Haskins so much, he's probably going to base his head coach search around who can work and who likes Dwayne Haskins.
But Kat, there's the problem. You're assuming that these people think rationally and make good decisions. We've been down this road multiple times now. We did it with RG3. They couldn't find a coach. They basically, first of all, they brought in Mike Shanahan, potentially a Hall of Fame coach, and who told the Redskins organization in no uncertain terms, I want Kirk Cousins. I can build an offense around Kirk Cousins. And we don't have to. We can get him in the third round. And they went ahead and made the deal with the Rams to get RG3. Shanahan was miserable, and he got chased out. When they hired the next guy, they hired someone to work with RG3. Well, that didn't go so hot because the guy that came in only wanted to work with Kirk Cousins. That's Jay Gruden. I think what you've laid out is a plan that should be executable and workable in the NFL. And time and time again, these guys just don't do it. I mean, it's like, how hard is it to ask a potential coach candidate, hey, do you like this quarterback? Can you build an offense around him? And would you? And I'm like, do they not even ask these? Like, who's in charge of HR? At the Redskins, where they can't even ask simple questions like this.
I think a lot of our listeners are hearing some overlap. What we've been thinking here as Dolphins fans with our front office for the last several years. I mean, there was, Jeff Ireland and Tony Sperano were here at the same time, and then you fire Tony Sperano, and then you bring in Joe Philbin, and you force him to work with Jeff Ireland. Then you blame Ireland. We've seen, I think maybe on a little bit less of a scale, kind of that dysfunction that you're alluding to. So it's interesting to hear that from a team completely in the other conference. So, Ken, finally, as we do with all our guests, what is your prediction for this game? And a second part to that question is, do you want to win this game for the Redskins, or are you kind of in that tank mindset that a lot of us Dolphins fans are?
So I'm anti-tank. I root for a win every Sunday. I wake up on Sunday morning and I go look at my 6-year-old daughter and I say, guess what day it is? And she says, oh, geez. And I say, it's Sunday. It's football. We get excited, and we watch the Redskins, and we cheer for them. I want to see a win. Our team is young, and our team is full of guys from places like Alabama. These players are not used to losing. We cannot afford, to subject them to a losing culture. We'll lose an entire batch of players all over again. So I am rooting for wins. I don't mind drafting in the middle of the first round. I always think you get fine players there. And I think that the Redskins are very capable of winning this game in spite of themselves. So, Kat, I will predict a win for the Redskins. I'll predict that the Redskins are able to put up some points. I'm going to say 34-17 Redskins. I think Terry McLaurin's going to have a great day. I think our defense is going to have a great day. And then I think the Redskins are going to try to jam "I told you so" down our throats because of this game. And it's going to be miserable. And then, the rest of the season is going to be terrible. But, Kat, I so respect the Dolphins. I love that Laramie Tansel trade. I love the commitment to rebuilding. It's obvious that it's hey, this is what we're doing. I wish the Redskins were that serious about it. So my hat is tipped to the Dolphins, and I envy you as a fan because you at least see they're actually super serious about what they're doing, and I want that. I would love to have that.
Well, I'll tell you, it doesn't make Sundays any better right now. That's for sure. It's especially when you're at the sports bar decked out in your Dolphins gear and doing a show at the end of the night, trying to patch together some promising things. But we really appreciate you being on here, Ken. You can follow Ken Meringolo, and he is the CEO of First Amendment Sports. He also contributes to Hog Haven as well. Join him on Twitter, too. Probably the greatest Twitter handle. It's Raining Ken. So give him a follow as well for some great Redskins insight. Ken, thanks for joining us here tonight.
Hey, best of luck to you guys the rest of the way. Can't wait to talk to you guys again.
Absolutely. And that will do it for our breakdown of the Redskins Dolphins matchup here with Ken, from the CEO of First Amendment Sports. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the fin side. Solo D, take us home.
It ain't the left side or the right side, then it must be the fin side. Inside. It ain't the left side or the right side, then it must be the fin side. Listen, Dolphins fans across the land all tuning in to see what